Vinci's tank looks like. It would have worked if the wheels would actually operate, but the crank here, when it was rotated, the wheels would have moved in the opposite direction at the same time, which probably would have pulled the wheels apart. Which means that it would have made sense that horses would have been attached to the tank at the front or back for like a period of time. Then when the tank is at the battlefield, the horses would have detached from the vehicle and would have moved away. And then the cannons would start firing.
What else?
Also, there probably was not that much space to reload the cannon. It probably would have done better being a turret than a moving vehicle like a tank. And for example, if a person was this tall, then it would have been super hard to reload the cannon.
Oh.
Because you would have had to crouch down. Like if someone was like this big, then reloading would have been easier. And also, then a platform could have been here and here and all around the wheels. Like in a top view, the wheels would have been like where the bars that I'm drawing are, and then they would be like surrounding it would have been like platforms which all have a cannon near them, like cannon here, 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 there, here, 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 and here. That's basically what the top should have looked like, but it didn't. It should have been much larger than it was supposed to. But that probably meant it would have to be a turret. And it would probably need several, if there was no motor and just the wheels were free rolling, then you would have needed like 4 horses to move the entire vehicle.
4, yeah. Show me, too heavy?
Well, yeah, because this one probably only needed this one probably would need 1 or 2 horses to pull it. But if it did not have a motor or something to crank to get it moving.
Who designed this one? Da Vinci?
Yeah.
Leonardo. So, you should be there with him.
But I'm gonna try and make what it would have looked like if it was propelled, or if it was pulled by something or pushed.
Okay, show me.
I'm gonna draw some designs of more modern looking versions of Leonardo's tank. So of the tanks that I'm drawing actually once existed. I'm also going to draw probably what the interior of the vehicle would have looked like. And all the designs that I'm drawing, I was slightly inspired of. But my inspiration or ideas of the version of the tank basically were just had modern had like would have diesel engines or something like that. Now, this tank I drew probably would have been even slower than walking. But what it lacks in speed, it definitely makes up in cannons and cargo, because it can carry more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cannons. And on the sidewalls, they would have been a bunch more. Like one here, 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 here.
What's this?
Here, here. So these are all the cannons. So they are 8 cannons here, which means that they would have been 18 they would have been more than 18 cannons. And on the other side, this wall would have been on the other side, which means that it would have had 24 cannons.
Cannon.
24 cannons.
Oh yeah.
The idea of the tank in real life was that it would get into the battlefield, and by the time that it fired all of its cannons, the battle would have been over.
Oh, I see. Okay, we're gonna.
Well, the tank was not really meant for reloading. It was just made to, as soon as it fires, it would have kept on firing and not reload, because that probably wouldn't be necessary unless they were fighting against vehicles, huge vehicles that had like thick wood armor or metal plates and other things that would have made cannons. That would have made cannons had to break, which means that cannon vehicles would have to reload the cannons in matter for them to actually be doing for them to be destroying the vehicle, because if they just all fired at once, or like one at a time and not reload, it would have been not even close to enough to probably pierce through the armor, or maybe somewhat close enough. Another tank, and a person would have been about this big, which means that a person would have been about this big, which means that they would have probably had to be decks and ladders or stairs to get up and down. The next tank design is very weird, but it is very similar to not many tanks. Well, it can't turn its turret, which only some modern or 1900 tanks have. And I think there are only this tank would have been kind of like a watchtower.
Fighting.
'Cause, 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 'c it would have had one very long cannon. And I'm also going to draw the interior. The crew of this vehicle had to push it themselves, which means that it would, in matter for it to get momentum, it would have had to get pushed off a hill by probably what were just ground crew that were not meant to be on the vehicle, because they probably couldn't catch up with the vehicle once it was rolling down the hill. So there would have been a platform here, which would have led to where the area to fire the cannon is. And a crew member would have had to be placing a very large cannonball into it.
That's what Leonardo's supposed to do?
Well, this was like probably one of the inspirations for like modern tanks, because it was very similar in the way its turrets were placed and the way it looked. But it had to be pushed. Probably because the country that made this probably did learned from other famous mechanics and builders that were in a place where this was built, and that's probably why, and there was no motors that actually worked that were invented by the famous people, but close, and it probably was pushed, because it was pushed, it probably would have been pushed down a slope. It also probably would have a brake system to stop it from falling.
Thank you, sir.
There would have been a brake system that someone would have to pull down, which would have probably had, nope, not finished. It would have had spikes on it that would have gone into the ground, but if the brakes went down, then the vehicle would probably go up like this, because the brakes probably could brake easily, but they would have been made out of iron, which is very expensive at these times, because they were just starting to advance in a way. They were using their mining machines, and pretty much probably all the mining machines that the country that this was made had probably did not had pushable machines, not machines that would have had cranes to move them. But probably another smart idea is to basically make a giant bike that is an area that's big enough for someone to go in, that's the size of a normal bike. And then that's one way of propulsion. And that means the wheels would have to be white.
Thank you.
Not finished yet.
Dr. Di Domenico Giovanni, finito?
So, this bar area is the ladder goes down to here, but if I erase this, then it would have just looked like this would have been a standing area. But someone could go here, and they probably would have had an and they probably would have a giant crossbow. I would have a giant, probably what would be a spear, would have been launched out of a crossbow. At usually, probably, well, the bolts probably were used for like defending against back attacks or against like people, not tanks, because they probably couldn't do any damage to tanks and they probably would only leave a dent. And unlike thin pieces of iron, that would have probably caused a dent, but not much other damage to like a piece of iron would have only had a dent, but not much damage done to it. But if the spear was shot at wood, it probably, if it got into a dent, it would only make it slightly wider, or taller, or longer. Depends on the way it cranks.
Finisce, professore? Finito?
Nope.
Va bene?
So probably I want there to be like a little piece here that they could have gone down. Where they could have gone down here into a area that probably would have been kind of like the engine area. Like they would possibly roll the wheels. Well, I guess I could make this bike propelled because these are just based off of. They aren't the exact ideas. So like this probably would have been like a little sharpshooter place where someone could stick their crossbows or an early rifle. And this is like in the 1700s, which means that probably crossbows were starting to get out of use. But that's just my guess date. This vehicle probably was made in 15 or 1400, because it had cannons and crossbows, which you do not see that much on many vehicles.
Finito?
Nope.
No.
Not even close.
You know more? What else you know?
Well, I'm gonna see what a bike design for this would have looked like. Well, I guess they would be like 7 wheels. This would have been a singular wheel, and these would have been and these 3 wheels would have been at the other side. They would have been cranked with like some sort of chain, like a bike, that would have been propelled when it was pushed.
What else Leonardo knows?
Like a gear would have been like
I understand this.
here and
What else Leonardo knows?
and someone would have been pedaling these.
What you know? What you think?